Hello, it's Thursday the 15th of August. Let's take a look at where we are in crypto. After last week's horror, everything seems to have calmed down again, certainly in the crypto space. We've seen some pretty nice bounces for some pretty good levels, but we're still range bound. And whilst we're in a, when you're in this trading range, even stuff that's outperforming will tend to be a little bit held back, unfortunately. And that's a little bit what we're seeing. So, for example, ETH is seeing some really nice inflows into ETFs again, which should be really bullish. But if the rest of the crypto market is having a little bit of a pullback, it won't help ETH. It will still, unfortunately, be in a bit of a pullback. But one thing you can do when in periods like this is you can look at what is outperforming, what is holding above the moving averages, what does look in a really good bullish pattern for more upside, and that's what I like to do in these periods. But let's start for now with where we are in Bitcoin and some of these other markets, and here's the sideways range I'm talking about. So let's take everything off here. Now, if we take a look at the whole correction that we have done since March of this year to the horrible low that we had last Monday, we can see, if I put my fib retrace levels on from this high to low, the level that we have got stuck at is the 50% retrace of this low to high, which very often is a tricky level. And that's also where all of our daily moving averages are bunched up as well. So 61,500 is the key level that we need to hold above, get above as in, and find support and hold above if we're going to keep going higher. And because I see fibs like a ladder, so sometimes if you go through a fib level, that level will then become support. Same as moving averages. We can see that the fib levels from the lows here have worked that way. So from this high to low, this 236 fib at 55,000, when we got above it, was textbook support. This 38.2, when we got above it, so far is really good support. And as long as we're still climbing this ladder, as long as we don't close underneath 58,591, we're still going up. If we close underneath 58,000, this 38.2, mean reverting markets tend to keep mean reverting. What does that mean? That means we're likely to see a 50% retrace of this swing. So when you go 50% one way, you are likely to do a 50% the other way, which means if we lose this support level that we're sideways at, we're going to come back to 55,977, basically 56,000. So if you're looking for that kind of ideal swing pullback level, 56,000 would be the one, because again, remember, we're likely to come back here and bounce from here. We might overshoot it, but as long as we close on the daily or weekly above it, we would then be looking for a 50% retrace of this bounce, and then above that, you tend to keep doing these 50%, and then when you break out of that consolidation pattern, that's your move. So I do think that whilst we are in this sideways range, until we break out of it, we don't know where we're going. I think if we break out of this, that's pretty happy days. I think we're headed to the top of the channel in this, which we can kind of draw something like this. Sometimes with these channels, you kind of have to fiddle with them. So I'm going to go from this high to this high, and that captures all these lows as well. Parallel channels work best. So we can say that if we can close above this midpoint, 61.5, basically, that we are likely to head back towards the 69,000 level. And this time, having failed, 4 or 5 times, this time we could very easily see that breakout, and that would be us on the way up again. So this level now in the middle becomes really important, right? If we break lower from here, we are likely to come back to that 56,000 support. Remember, look at these supports that have held with really nasty, tails lower. So, don't be surprised if you see it come down here and you buy it if it doesn't make a nasty tail to shock everybody. So that's where I'm seeing Bitcoin at the moment. And in the middle, really, it's kind of no trade. Now, we could argue this is a very nice flagpole and this is a very nice flag. That certainly could be what's going on here. We'll take away this way. And so happy days if that's what's going on, we've got something like that going on. again, this is still, this gives us the same breakout level. And if you're trading within this, you know, the top of this channel, if you're on the long side, would be your first target. And only if we break out are we going up again. Now, what's outperforming? Well, ETH is one of them a little bit, because again, I think we're seeing improved inflows into the ETFs. And you know, these ETFs, I feel like I concentrate more and more now on the US market rather than what's going on around the world in crypto. But the US market, the more and more investment we get in these ETFs and in Bitcoin and the futures markets, and the more anticipation we get that maybe more will become ETFs, mean that that's where the volume is. If you think that, you know what, 90% of Bitcoin holders don't ever trade Bitcoin. They have it in their long-term cold storage wallets. That's it. They buy and they don't sell. They hodl. And that means that only 10% of the market actually is trading it in and out and driving these moves. And I do think that a lot of that is now in the US markets. And so what happens in the US environment becomes more and more important. Now, in ETH, if we look at the fib levels in ETH that may be driving us, if we go from this big swing high to low that we're inside of, you know, there's that thing in the middle, the 61.8, 38.2. There's a pattern here. When you reverse at a 61.8 fib, between that and the 38.2 is like the golden ratio zone, the chop zone. When you reverse though at a 786 fib, you're most common, then your first target is back to the 38.2, which we did here very nicely in ETH in 3 waves. And this 50% level in the middle is a bit of a pivot level. So for me, that's the level we've got to get above in ETH if we're going up and this big 3-wave correction is over, and it's at 2,874. And here on the weekly, we can see it was a really important level with these previous lows. So that's what I'm looking for. If we look at this on the daily, then you can see we haven't got back to this important decision level, 2,874. And we are doing a very nice moves higher. You know, we're not doing badly, but until we get back above this level, we can't really argue. And back above these, start to regain some of these daily moving averages. At the moment, we're still underneath a shorter term 20 moving average on the daily. We can't really argue that we are in a new upswing yet either. But I do see the situation improving a bit with the inflows. And I do think that we are quite likely to perhaps test that 2,874 level in ETH. So that's the way we are with that. But that's pretty important resistance, that 20 moving average. If we look at ETH again on the weekly, where's our problem here? It's this weekly 50 moving average that we're back testing. And we can see this weekly 50, support, resistance, support when we hold above it, resistance when we get underneath it. It's a big deal. First time back to it, you know, it's quite hard to get above it. So although we've had this really nice bullish looking candle, we haven't followed through with more upside, and we won't until we can regain that 50 moving average. And so we are on a little bit of a summer chop zone. And if you think, I think I showed you before, seasonally, Bitcoin only has 2 negative months or 2 red months usually, based on the last 14 years, obviously, because it hasn't been around forever. August is seasonally moderately bearish, and September really is the only bearish month. And here we are, you know, we're halfway through August today, and we could potentially start to see some weakness. We're not necessarily out of trouble yet, and we need to trade a little bit carefully because of it. Do we get really nice opportunities usually September, October? Yeah, we do, but we're just not quite there yet either. And when I look at a lot of other markets, they're all sitting underneath. There is support and resistance. And here, for example, this is a very bearish 3-candle pattern on the weekly in Solana. And here we are now holding under this weekly 20 moving average, which was previously support. Now, when I zoom out and look at this, do I think that this looks lovely? I really do. Look, 5 waves up, 3 waves back, holding these weekly moving averages. What's not to like? It's, you know, pretty nice pattern. They're very nice also. Flag pattern here, pull back to these moving averages. There's nothing not to like for this, except that here we are in the middle, and we just might take a week or two to get back above this 20B moving average to be going up again. So is there anything that looks a little bit more tempting? So one of the ones, so this 50% problem that we're dealing with in Bitcoin, if we look at WIF, we have got that pattern at the opposite direction, which potentially might help us. So for example, here is WIF, dog with hat. So I think that we had a, in WIF, let's take let's take all my scribbles off here. As you know, in WIF, big picture, from this low to high, we bounced from a 786 fib. So this is the inverse of the correction that we saw in ETH. When you get above the 61.8, your first target is this 38.2, which is up here at 3.06, which is very nice. That's 100% from where we are now. Now, the first time back to, again, these daily moving averages, this big important fib level that we need to regain, which is at 1.95, and you can see previous highs and lows, big deal level for dog with hat. We haven't got above it first time. So what we're looking for on a lower time frame, I'm going to down to the 4 hour, is a really nice 5-wave move, which we could probably argue this was. But for me, I'm always looking for the zigzag, that 3-wave correction. And I think kind of that's maybe what we have here. And I also think that maybe we've done a 5-wave correction here, because we're bouncing textbook, look, from this 50% level. That means for me, look, there we go. 1.51 is a 50% retrace of this entire rally that we have had in August. That means for me, if we get back above this 38.2, rather than it just being a ladder down, you can then, we should retrace 50% of this drop. So we can say above 1.62. So if you like this on the long side, then, or you get a lower time frame reversal, which I think we're kind of seeing here in the 15-minute. Here, 15-minute moving average is flipped. I'm looking for this to get to 1.62, and above 1.62, we're going to look for the top of this channel again, and a 50% retrace going the other way. So what do I mean by that? I mean, look, here's our little channel here, kind of channeling going on. Probably more something like that. Okay, so above 1.62, we're gonna go to 50% of this entire drop, and then above that, we're likely to see a breakout of this channel and hopefully retest this 1.95 level. And then our swing trade above 1.95, our target is 3.06, which is that 38.2, if we can get above and hold above it. So yeah, this is where we can use that 50% rule going the other direction. So again, I'm going to go back to the hourly, set above 1.62, I'm going to look for the top of this channel, the hourly 200 moving average, and above it, I'm going to look for 1.95, and above 1.95, another swing high. Now, if all we do is 3 waves, and if all we do is get up here, I would expect first time back to the top of this channel a bit of a pullback, and then we'll see if we can turn this into a bigger reversal in WIF. So yeah, that's what I'm looking for in that one. Now, another ones that I've been looking at. So again, fib rules, right? This is a daily chart of SUI from the high to the low, right? 236 fib retraces, or the previous swing high. Let's talk about it simply. If you're in a downtrend, right, you're making lower highs and lower lows. That trend changes when you take out this previous swing high and you can get above it. Then you're going to look for a higher low and then a higher high, and then we can say that's the trend change, right? So here in SUI, we've done the first hard bit. We've gotten above this previous swing high here at 0.86. So now we're looking for a lower high and another swing higher. And again, sometimes these fib levels, again, work like staircase or a ladder. And so we would see this 236 fib hold as support. So 0.86 here for SUI is quite important support. If we look low time frame, if we get down to an hourly, made a nice little kind of double bottom swingy pattern, there is room to go a little bit lower. But I'm going to say rules go the other way, right? 236 fib from this high. If we can get above that, we're probably going to try a bigger move. So that's 236 fib now, right? It's right here in SUI. We really need to hold above 0.93. Sometimes it takes a bit of time to build a bottom. So you might see this or an inverted head and shoulders pattern or something like that, or it might even do a double bottom, you know, or one of those nasty crypto double bottoms where you spike a little lower low. But SUI, potentially quite a interesting level to bounce from. And holding above 0.93, we're going to look for that round number 1 in the middle, which is 50% of the drop. Back above round number 1, I think we retest that previous swing high and potentially 1.32. And as I said, SUI was one of the ones I'm looking at, because if we look at the weekly and we can get above that round number 1 here, we can get above those weekly moving averages, which are really tough in the middle resistance levels. And if we look at this on the daily, we can go continue higher and challenge the daily 200 and so on, and potentially start a new uptrend. We've got the first sign, a higher high. Now we need a lower high and another swing higher. So I am watching SUI as well. Tau hasn't quite put in the bullish reversal I was watching for. There are some really exciting stuff happening out there at the moment, but at the moment, when we're in a broader sideways channeling pattern, or we haven't quite bottomed yet, or the bigger market is in a pullback, we're in one of those situations where you kind of have to look quite hard for the good ones, or the ones that are outperforming until things change. At the moment, those stocks, the American economy is doing really well. Stocks are squeezing really higher. The one thing I would say is be very careful. Like, I don't know how many people in crypto were hanging on the words of Elon and Trump on Monday for that, you know, very vaunted interview. It's got to be the most boring thing I've ever listened to. And, you know, listen, all of these politicians, they're all about money and they want to get elected. Trump wants to get elected. It's only 2022 since he was still calling Bitcoin a scam, saying that he didn't like it. It competed with the dollar, and he was not a fan of cryptocurrencies at all. He did not, you know, he did not free Ross Ulbricht. He could have pardoned him before. And then, of course, he discovered NFTs that can raise him money, and he realizes that this is something that could raise him money. So we all listened on Monday night, got absolutely nothing. And yeah, I don't know. I don't trust politicians of either kind. You know, I am very dubious. I would much rather this is RFK, or who's always been a fan of crypto and who is a proper libertarian, and cares about freedom, rather than somebody who just seems to have lately flipped to get elected. So, and I say that because we've got lots coming up next week. We've got the Democratic National Convention. God, that could be a little bit of a wobble, you know, because I think we could see some pretty ugly demonstrations. We'll see how it goes. We'll see what they say about crypto as well. It'll be a surprise. And of course, we're still waiting to see what Iran does, what's happening in the world. I think we should just, this is August, it's midsummer. The best opportunities, I think, come in September or October. And we need to trade very carefully and be careful with leverage in this volatility, which seems to be increasing. Okay. Good luck, though. I wouldn't be surprised at all. You know, I'm hoping to be surprised, and I'm ready. If we get those breakouts, if we break above that 50% mid-pivot point in the middle in Bitcoin, I'm in. I'm buying pullbacks. I'm with everybody else. You know, I want us to all do well, make money, and trade this well. So I don't want to be Debbie Downer. I just want to say it's August. And it feels a little uncertain out there, so go carefully. Good luck.